Today we are going to talk about a tool called levels of performance. I have here a visual, a chart. On this x-axis we have time. This is the time axis, and the vertical axis is a performance axis. This is to chart the performance of one of your employees. I have broken up the performance axis into three chunks. The top chunk I call selectable. The middle group here I call incumbent, and the lower group unacceptable. Let me define these three different levels of performance: selectable, incumbent, and unacceptable. An employee is operating at a selectable level of performance if, should that position become vacant and that employee is available in the marketplace, you, knowing everything you know about this person, would voluntarily select her to fill that position. In other words, you, if the position became vacant and that person is available, you, knowing everything you know about them, you would voluntarily select that person to fill that position. You would hire them back. That is called a selectable level of performance. An employee is operating at an incumbent level of performance if, should that position become vacant and that person is available in the marketplace, you, knowing all that you know about this person, would not voluntarily select him to fill that position. However, there is a cost. This person already has the job. They are in your company doing that job. They are in that position. There would be a cost associated with getting rid of this person. There is a cost associated with finding somebody else, a cost associated with training that person into this new position. And then there are probabilities involved. Do you really get somebody better? You don't know. You add up the costs, multiply by probabilities, you come to the conclusion that it is not in your economic interest to actively get rid of this person. So you keep the person. And so why do they have the job? They have the job because they've got the job. You wouldn't hire them, but they already have the job. That's an incumbent level of performance. An unacceptable level of performance is one where they're doing so bad, you're going to incur the cost to get rid of that person, you're going to incur the cost of hiring somebody else, cost of retaining that person, and you're pretty sure you're going to come out ahead. You go ahead and accept the cost. That's an unacceptable level of performance. These are three levels of performance. You can take your employees and you can kind of bucket them into these three groups. Now let's take a hypothetical employee. An employee who joins you on day one. On day one, in other words, in the time axis, on day one, what is your expectation of their anticipated level of performance? Well, you just selected them. You voluntarily selected them in the marketplace to fill the position. And therefore, on day one, you expect them to operate at the selectable level. Now, as that employee operates in your company, let's say months and years have gone by, time has gone by, and some time later, maybe a few years later, let us say that that employee ended up in an unacceptable level. They must have somehow in the course of events taken a path that looked like that. What performance reviews do is they focus the conversation with this employee at this point. Now, where should you really have focused the conversation? When should you have had the conversation with this person? You should have had the conversation with this person here, when they moved from being a selectable level of performance to an incumbent level of performance. But mind you, when they were here as an incumbent level of performance, is it in your economic interest to communicate to them that you will not hire them? No, it is not. In fact, it is in your economic interest for them to stay. So you don't really tell them. You don't tell them. You don't tell them that I would not hire you back. In fact, you want to tell them, but you really don't want to tell them. So you kind of tell them, but not really tell them. You give them hints. You give them, oh, you could possibly do something little differently. You give them hints. You don't really tell them, I would not hire you back. You wait. You wait until they get to this point, and then you tell them point blank, because you're going to let them go if they don't improve. It's a bit late. In fact, if you had told them here, one of three things could happen. This employee, their performance could turn around, and that's a great thing. Or, second thing that could happen, that employee could get fed up with you and just ship out on their own. Well, that's actually not bad. Or third, that employee could get so frustrated and dejected, go downhill real fast. To tell you the truth, that's not bad either, because then what should you do? You reduce the time constant of the time between when they slipped into the incumbent to when you got rid of them. You reduce the time constant of that delay. Your cost during this time here, your cost is this time multiplied by the loss of performance. You have reduced that cost. You should be talking to your employees when they move from the selectable level to the incumbent level. Think about your employees. Ask yourself, is each of my employees operating at a selectable level of performance or an incumbent level of performance? And if they're operating at an incumbent level of performance, am I communicating to them that they're operating at an incumbent level of performance? That if I were to hire them back, I would not hire them. To understand that concept, also check into our tool called the parking lot exercise. The concept of levels of performance is very valuable when you're having a conversation with employees. Communicate to your employees what their level of performance is.